Want to welcome everyone to the second episode of the Fully Alive podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about discovering your purpose. My name is Brian Phipps, and I'm on the team that hosts the Fully Alive digital community that's inspired this podcast. You can join that community for free by downloading the app Fully Alive by Disciples Made in the Apple Store or on Google Play. And this podcast is about people like you, people that want to live more fully alive. We're going to hear real stories of people that are trading their lives for the fully alive life that Jesus offers. And I cannot wait for you to meet Kirby Langley, our guest on this episode. He and his wife, Alexis, inspire me regularly. All right, Kirby, let's get to it. Tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It's great to be with you. So I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. You mentioned my wonderful wife, Alexis. We've been married for 13 years. And I think being in your triad, we've journaled quite a bit about if you marry up, life is a lot better. So I was fortunate to do that. We have 3 daughters. So we have a blended scenario. I was a single dad when I met Alexis. So Jazz, my oldest daughter, will be 23 in August. And then we have Rebecca, who will be 12 in December. She wants me to say it that way. And then our youngest, Naomi, will be 9 this month. And then, hey, while we're on birthdays, I'll have a birthday in July as well. I'll be 45.
Sweet.
So I hope.
Hold on just 1 second, Kirby. Hold on just 1 second. Hannah, I'm hearing myself and I think in Kirby's recording. Is that coming through? Or is it because I'm hearing it in my headphones for sure? No, it's an echo from me. And I think I'm hearing myself somewhere, and I would assume it's on Kirby's, coming through Kirby's speaker and then back in. She's going to have to come check that out. I just want to make sure we don't get down the road and.
And there's an occasional crackling that I hear.
Kirby says he's hearing an occasional cracking.
It's not overpowering.
Is it because my voice is too hot, or is it just something staticky? You want to talk to him? Talk and ask him. That's better. You want me to talk in here? Is it better now? The crackling? Do I need to keep talking to see if it's crackling? 1, 2, 17, 45. I heard it again just now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, seems to be gone. You weren't muted during that, were you, Kirby?
No.
Okay, not changing anything. It seems to be gone now. When I would talk and you would talk, can you talk with me again? Say
sure.
I live in Charlotte.
I live in Charlotte. My name's Kirby.
The Queen City.
I have dogs.
Okay, it seems to be better to me now.
Okay. That sound weird?
I've been doing that because I turned that echo thing off in the mixer.
Okay. Okay, I'll let you know. Does what sound weird, Kirby?
Did that sound better? The sound?
Yeah, it does. I'm not hearing the echo anymore. What's that? Don't mess up those keys. Oh, don't mess with the keys. All right, Hannah, I'm going to assume that it is. I just heard the reverb again. I wonder if that's Hannah's. Okay, it might be. So, Hannah, real quick, do you want me to just start as, all right, let's get to it. Kirby, tell us a little bit about yourself. Do you think the other was fine? If that's the popping, I just heard some popping, but I think that's Hannah. Uh-oh. Uh, okay.
On the intro.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to pick up right there as if you haven't said anything at all yet. All right. Let's get to it. Kirby, tell us a little bit about yourself, you and your family.
Oh, yeah. So, as you said, Kirby Langley, good to be with you. My wife, Alexis, we've been married for 13 years. We have a blended scenario. So, I was a single dad when I met my wife. So, 3 daughters, Jaslyn, who's 22, she'll be 23 in August. Rebecca is 11, and Naomi will be 9 this month.
Awesome. And you are in the Queen City.
In the Queen City. And I should mention we have 2 Vishlas, Rainier and Sammy. They're 3.
And they're gorgeous. The Queen City, what is that for those that may not be as privileged to know as we are?
Yeah, Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina. So Lex and I met in Columbia. We did a 10-year stint in Seattle and then felt called to come back east, get closer to family. And we picked Charlotte, moved here 2 weeks before COVID.
Excellent. I love Charlotte. Thought I would stay there forever. Lived in that area, planted a church. Interesting aspect about our relationship, Kirby. We'll just introduce it here. We've actually never met in person, but our lives have been pretty intertwined here of late as we've been in a similar triad together in a Leaders Made and have continued that for the last 9 months or so after Leaders Made.
Yeah, I was thinking of that. You are one of the closest people to me, and we've never actually got to meet in person. So we have to change that.
It's for sure. It's a different day and age. Hey, tell everybody kind of what do you do for a living? What is your day job?
Yes. So I am an entrepreneur trapped inside of W-2 work, but working on lots of side hustles too. So I say that tongue in cheek a bit, but my current startup role, I got into software. SaaS is software as a service, about 2011. So I'm on my third startup. This is the earliest stage I've ever entered a company, but I am the sales director and go-to-market leader for Cellular with an S. And it's a sales software that helps sales teams prospect and work through accounts, leads, and opportunities. That is what I spend most of my time doing. And I get to do it on Zoom since COVID kind of traveled down and people found out and realized you could do a lot from Zoom and not have to be in person. So I work a lot from my home office that you see here.
Nice. So how did you get connected to Fully Alive here? Like this Fully Alive podcast, how did all this start?
Yes. I will try to start and not go super far back, but we were looking to move back east. We were a part of a church plant that planted out of the Mars Hill conflict in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were 4 years into that, and that had been our church and disciple making experience. Lex and I met at a church plant in Columbia. We spent lots of time in Seattle in the Acts 29 church planting network, and our church, Cross and Crown, was a part of what came out of that story.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were looking to move back east, I forget who introduced me to a couple of books, but Letters to the Church by Francis Chan was one of the first things I read to kind of, I think the Lord used it to really spark something in me that we might be focusing on not wrong things or bad things, but not the primary things. So that was first. And somehow through a series of podcasts and resources, the Starfish and the Spirit, and then Disciples Made. And so I'm a podcast guy, and I just love to ingest people that are thinking down a track. And this was something, just making disciples, simply making disciples was an idea that the Lord just put in my heart and wouldn't let me stop thinking about. And I think I donated first, right? I was really on board with what you guys were doing and the vision I think it's grown now since we've tweaked it to Fully Alive, but what's the number that you want to see? I forget.
The vision of Disciples Made in the Fully Alive community that we host is 70,000 disciple makers, or 70,000 Kirbys, helping 2 million of their friends live more fully alive through Jesus. Yeah.
And that just resonated. So we want our dollars to support things that align with things that we find important. And then I think you and I jumped on a Zoom shortly after that. So that's how that started.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. In fact, I think you had did you read Find Your Place too? The book that Rob Wegner and I wrote, because Rob and Lance, of course, wrote Starfish in the Spirit. And then you must have gotten connected to Find Your Place somehow. And yeah, you made a contribution, and I reached out on Facebook. I Facebook stalked you to figure out who's this guy that was so nice. And that's how the relationship started.
Not a bot, real person. Yeah. In that season, as we moved, as you know, like you couldn't go to church services or attend things for quite a while. So on top of this, momentum just stirred of like, what are we supposed to be doing? And we had hired a group to help Lex and I craft a family vision for ourselves, and that's where Find Your Place Find Your Place found a slot into that season, where we were dreaming and planning about what does God have for Team Langley for this half of life.
Love it. So you're starting already to get into that part of the conversation, and I love it. We're talking about discovering your purpose. And so your purpose, kind of the question I wanted to ask you is, what would you say your life purpose is? But you saw that not as an individual purpose, so to speak, but as a Team Langley purpose. Talk more about like your personal life purpose or family. How does all that work?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There is a portion that's for you as an individual, but then collectively, the things that you're a part of, whether it's your local church or community or family. So for us, we looked at how God had used us in the prior, 10 years of our marriage, and we looked at the things that were fruitful for us and the things that really excited us. And a couple of things stood out. One, we wanted to include the kids, so we wanted it to be a household venture, not something mom and dad did, and then the kids go over here to do other things. So the household piece was really important. And then I don't know if other folks experience this, but as you move up and mature in faith and get higher up in church leadership, you often rub elbows less with people far from God. So you can look around and everyone in your network is a believer. And that didn't sit well with us. So what we've been doing is first repenting of how did we get here? Because I know we're should be living in and get to live into our identity as missionaries being sent as Jesus was, and not just hanging out and one anothering and doing Bible studies and potlucks and things that we all enjoy doing, but miss the point of mission. So for us, it was really those two things. We really want to include the kids in as much as we could possibly include. And then we got to create space for people that are far from God or are not yet believers. That was kind of two pillars that came out of that season of kind of searching.
So I'm hearing that if you were to boil that down, your life purpose is to be very intentional about how you use your life to do it in a family sense. And as you're doing that, to make sure that you don't allow what you're doing to be kind of caught up in more of a subculture. You want to be an agent of change in the big culture. Or as we talk about where you live, work, learn, and play, would you say that's kind of the life purpose?
Yeah, so I'll just, it's easier to read it. Our family vision I have as a simple, this will never change. It's to help people see Jesus and experience the kingdom of God. So that trajectory, awesome. That's the direction we're going. And then I think missions and assignments can change over seasons. So for now, our first 3 years into Charlotte, we just had a couple of things that were priority, which is do everything through a family team as we possibly can and focus on disciple making in our local region. So that's kind of how we did that. But I think it, as you guys have thought through this idea, I think it can change over time. Like your purpose, depending on the season and responsibility and life stage that you're in, it may not stay exactly the same.
Gotcha. So talking about not staying the same, like, was this purpose? Hold on, Hannah's jumping in.
Okay. Yes. So it's
And
giggling the
Hannah,
camera.
now that we've got this thing stopped, if Kirby and I talk at the same time, that's when I hear the echo. Do I need to click this echo cancellation? Because it, okay, perfect. I was wondering if that might be the case. Okay. You guys are doing great. Bye.
Yeah, you're
All
doing
right.
great. Try not to bang the table and shake the video.
Yeah, I put my hands in my pockets, so I don't do the same. I got a text earlier. I thought it was about me, but it might have been about you or both of us. All right. So that last thing you said there, Kirby, is interesting. You said it can change over time, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. We're trying to help people understand how to live fully alive. That's what this podcast is all about. You're a person I believe is doing that and kind of being a great what's the pace car out there for all of us, model for us to watch and to follow. Would you say, because that's a pretty defined life mission, would you say what were the phases that helped you get there? Has that always been the life mission, or have there been other missions that have evolved over time?
Yeah, I do think it's certainly evolved over time. Um, start, I would say my teens and 20s were rebellious and apart from Jesus.
Hmm.
As soon as he entered in, it's been over 20 years now, but as a single person, single dad, there were different assignments and purpose. At least some of it was survival and foundation building, right? So,
Sure.
you know, I feel like at certain stages, it's just like, hey, how do we put food on the table and take care of logistical things? And so it was very basic. But I think since getting married and really thinking about this idea of, wow, what is fully alive? Like, what is God actually? What are we inviting people to? And how am I even living it out?
Hmm.
That's just really been instrumental with how we think about all of this going forward. So does that
Gotcha.
help?
It does. I'm going to ask it a different way as well. What would you say are the top two or three most formative experiences in your life that have shaped this purpose? And sometimes those are, painful. Sometimes those are big celebrations and wins and promotions and trainings or something like that. But sometimes those are struggles. So top two or three most formative experiences.
Yeah, I would say the first one in my 20s as a single dad in Columbia, South Carolina, before we met and moved to Seattle, I was at kind of a low point, and there were two retired Presbyterian pastors who had started this ministry called Focus Living, and their whole idea was to help dudes live fully alive that were broken. And they wouldn't have defined it that way, but that's what they were doing. So the first time for me that I experienced I wouldn't have had a term for it, but it was true discipleship. Just every aspect of what I'm believing being transformed by the gospel and walking it out with a group of people doing the same thing. So I would say that was primary. And I wanted other people to taste that going forward. If this
Hmm.
is what it means to start stepping into fully alive, then I have to have other people doing this as well. So
Seems to me
one.
that's like a shout out moment for if you've never been invested in or discipled. It might be very intimidating to want to be one of those 70,000 people that disciples others, right? We find that even with pastors. We coach pastors a lot of the times, and the pastors, I don't know how to disciple people because I've never been discipled. But what you're
Yep.
saying is you probably have this passion for disciple making because you were invested in. So, like, I know this is a question that's not on the sheet here for us to look at, but how do you go around finding somebody to invest in you if that's people's first step?
Yeah. Well, in that example, it was because of the low point, and I was really willing to
Hmm.
just knock on doors and ask. But there were moments in my journey where I've actually just asked guys, "Hey, will you pour into me? Will you disciple me for a time?" I was just hungry for it,
I've done the
and
same.
get over that fear. Make that first step. I would encourage anyone to do that.
Absolutely. If you're a part of a congregation, Go and talk to some of the pastors, leaders, small group leaders, whatever. If you're not, perhaps find one. If that's intimidating to you, there's an awful lot of people that engage in the Fully Alive community that you can chat up and just say, hey, you seem like an interesting person. So there's ways that people can do that. So great word. So that was one formative experience. A couple others, perhaps?
Yeah, I would say the second one would be kind of a collective experience of meeting in a church plant in Colombia, getting married, working our way up in leadership at that church, all from a non-paid volunteer perspective, moving to Seattle, being a part of the Mars Hill infrastructure, just seeing how some of the most successful churches in America operate, and then becoming an unpaid elder, my wife being a women's ministry director. This is the moment kind of leading up to where one day we looked at our calendars, it was completely full of church stuff. And back to what I mentioned earlier, it was all with current believers. So there was really no margin for other things. And there was really no margin for people that are not yet believers or far from God. And that was kind of an aha of like, man, is this what we're calling to? Is this the ultimate way to serve the church? Or should it be simpler? Or should it be more personal, more fruitful? So that component just made me start asking questions.
Wow, that might be a little disorienting even for people listening to this call. Going, wait a minute, I thought the church activity was the stuff, but what you're saying, I just want to bring a bullet point to it. What you're saying is the church stuff was all the church activities that you were involved in was clouding your personal calendar so much that you could not build relationships with people that weren't there yet.
It's true.
Is that right? Am I hearing that right? I just want to.
It was completely full. Unless I were to neglect, basic responsibilities and go out and try to make that happen, it was completely full of church things. And there were fruitful, helpful things happening in those moments, but it was pretty overwhelming.
Gotcha. All right. So that's two. Is there a third formative experience here?
Yeah, I think this is where it begins to get fun. And moving to Charlotte, feeling led and pressing into the Lord of what our vision and calling might be for our family, getting here, and then actually trying to begin to put steps in motion to follow that. So for the last 3 years, it's been engaging with groups like Fully Alive, becoming a part of Leaders Made and the Triad, and really things that excited me about just simple disciple making. I started finding different movements that were happening all over the world. So all of that was resonating with me. Being in a new place and having something as extreme as COVID happened just gave us a lot of time to think and ask questions and read. And then for me, as I'm wired, I like to start putting things in motion and testing different things. But I think the move back to the Southeast, COVID happening, in addition to those first two kind of milestone things that happened, really gave me an idea of how we want to invest the rest of our lives.
And how would you say that is how that serving that? What would you, if you bulleted it all down in 10 words or less, what is that thing, that way?
That's a good question. It's hard to simplify things, I think. Oh, sorry, I hit the table. Hannah, sorry. I think it's just I would love to see a disciple making movement of Jesus happen through the Carolinas and for my family to be a part of whatever that means. So some things I learned early on from Fully Alive or Disciples Made was just rhythms and habits. So we stopped doing some things and we added other things, and we've tested fruit from that, and then we'll make adjustments and then go forward again. So that's how we approach it.
I love it. Well, in the Fully Alive community, the word we use to describe purpose is the word calling, personal calling, masterpiece, mission. And I like the word calling because it adds that element of that very personal and intentional invitation from God to join him in bringing heaven to earth. And of course, living out your calling, particularly early on when you're discovering it and starting to engage it, is absolutely thrilling. But there's that take up your cross part to that as well. There are costs to pursuing your calling. So what are some of the like the honest challenges that you and Lexi have faced, and the rest of your family as you've pursued your calling? What are some of the things that you've had to give up? What are those costs? I won't say anymore.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is we as a family try to keep our commitments really low and lots of margin in our calendar. So for us, that means we don't do a lot of the sporting events. We don't do a lot of extracurriculars for the kiddos. I have peers and friends that are seemingly running at 95 miles an hour everywhere to the next event that their kids are doing. And those could be very good and fruitful things for them. So
Sure.
for us, we've chosen to really calculate what we say yes to as a family so that we have margin to put other rhythms in.
Gotcha. Any other like pains, or is it, that sounds like benefits? I didn't feel like take up your cross so much yet, or is it?
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
Our kids, they haven't asked, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? So I think they've kind of adopted and enjoyed the family culture and rhythm that we've built. So one of the pains would be people maybe don't understand what we're doing,
Hmm.
and it may not fit into their idea of what church is or what doing ministry would be. So there's relational costs to folks that maybe want it to look a certain way and it doesn't.
That makes sense. And you've had some of that in the local congregation setting. You mentioned Presbyterians in the past. Big shout out. I was raised in the Presbyterian church, born in Presbyterian Hospital in Charlotte, actually. So my dad was a Presbyterian pastor, so a lot of Presbyterian there in my background. But in trying to figure out, so how do you, like your family's involvement in a local congregation or not, that's been a part of your story too. How much of that are you willing to talk about here?
Well, and we're kind of in the middle of that. So what Lex and I would like to do is just focus on the relational discipleship components and be less focused on what expression that could look like
Hmm.
in a normal church context or a house church scenario or some other hybrid in between. And that sometimes people don't have a category for. So the way that we felt led by the Lord is, are you willing to lay down your preferences in order to see this fruitful path happen? And for us, we really like attending church services. We really like singing with awesome music and good teaching. And all of those things are kind of normal feeling because of the way we have practiced our faith for the last
Sure.
2 decades. However, like we discovered, it can easily distract or get in the way from true missional opportunity and helping people actually live fully alive. It doesn't have to look that way. So we're
Gotcha.
still kind of working through that. We have less concern of what that looks like, and don't, as long as we're focused on the folks that people have told us to love on and pursue and invest into. And it's tricky for folks who maybe want it to be all this or all that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's another conversation for another day, for sure.
It
And
is.
so let's turn the corner just a little bit. I've heard over the course of my life, Christians will debate whether or not faith is more about being or more about doing, almost as if you have to choose between being and doing. And in the character times calling equals impact equation, we call it the my impact equation. Who you're becoming, that's the character, and what you're doing, that's your calling, are equal, and they're equal on purpose. Pursuing our calling can wear us down if we don't stay connected to the vine or keep developing that character or abide in Christ to do that. How do you stay connected to God and your loved ones as you are living out your calling so that dryness doesn't happen?
Yeah, there's 3 important habits that we've developed and that are crucial. So the first one's personal, and it's um, just the daily connection with Jesus. And a lot of that, as you have been a part of my triad for some time now,
Yeah.
there's just something magical that happens when you're in the scriptures together with
Mm.
others, and the journaling aspect of that and just sharing what God's stirring as you read different texts has been just fundamentally amazing for us. So making sure that I'm growing in the fruit of the Spirit, pointed in the right direction, that daily carved out, unhurried time is
Mm.
crucial. And it's also enabled me to go throughout the day and add other little moments of unhurried time. So it's a big block at a certain point in the morning, but it happens throughout the day with little breaks and 5-minute walks and things like that. So that would be the first one.
Let me comment on that real quick before you go to number two. There's something about waking up at 6 o'clock. You're an hour ahead of me in Charlotte. We're in Kansas City, so you're an hour ahead. There's something about waking up and already having the notification in the Fully Alive app that Kirby has posted a note and mentioned me in there as our little triad things. There's just something to look forward to. You have that daily interaction around God's word. So I just wanted to let everybody else to kind of peek in a little bit and see how powerful that is.
Yeah. I would add too, I hadn't done that format before. Like I've obviously read and journaled and kept things to myself, but inviting two others in has just been, it's added an HD effect to it. So
for sure.
I agree with that.
Well said.
I would say the second thing is a family rhythm. So we really try to put our anchor day as a Sabbath day, a 24-hour period where it is really unhurried, no distractions from work. We eat our best meals. We invite friends over. It's just, we want to work out of our rest. So that practice, we've kept fairly good, faithful for several years now. And I just think that keeps us on track. So that would be the second one.
Excellent. Now, we met, kind of going back to the personal calling element here. We met because you read the book that Rob Wagner and I wrote called Find Your Place. You reached out to us. We have a free course called Find Your Place in the Fully Alive app. If you download the app in Google Play or the iOS, it's the Fully Alive app by Disciples Made. You can find that course under the develop courses. So, do you remember what was most helpful to you when working through that book or taking the GPS assessment? What one or two things stood out the most as the most helpful?
Yeah. First, there's so many ways that God's uniquely wired people. And there's not only just 3 ways you can serve the kingdom, right? So it was huge. It was in a time where we were taking a DISC test and an Enneagram test and all these, all the things. But this was hugely helpful because it focused on spiritual gifts and how how you're wired and your experiences and all of that shape what you can do in the kingdom. And that was huge. I forget, is the APES a part of that?
Yeah, we call it the spiritual influencing style. Yeah.
I don't know why Ephesians 4 hasn't been more visible, in the first part of my walk, but it's so huge as you're building teams and thinking about the different giftings. APES was huge. So my wife knows her top 2. I know my top 2. And we just kind of want to stay in our lanes of, obviously, if God calls you to do something that's outside of it, you go do it. But as you're working through this type of idea, you kind of want to stay in those tracks.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah. Hats off again to Rob Wagner. I've mentioned his name several times, close friend here in Kansas City, co-author of that book. He's the one that made me include APEST in the GPS assessment. And I wanted to call it something different, spiritual influencing style. It's kind of when you show up to a meeting or you show up anywhere, you bring an agenda that's given to you by God. I either want to take it way out there, that's your apostle, or you want to care for everybody that's with us. That's the shepherd. The prophet wants to make sure we're doing it right and according to God's word, etc. When people get that stuff, man, it does. It's a game changer. And you recognize your different parts on the team. So I'm glad that was helpful. I think this is the next to last question. Kirby, many people struggle to discover their purpose or calling even after they take an assessment like GPS or reading a book like Find Your Place, or even going through a small group thing like the Find Your Place experience. So 2 questions, knowing that that's the case. What one thing do you think people need to know about God to encourage them to take that next step? And then what one step would you recommend they take to start pursuing that purpose?
Yeah, I was thinking this could sound overwhelming to a lot of folks. I am more apostolic and I get all geeked up over strategic planning and So I
love it.
realize not everyone's wired that way. But I think ultimately, first about God is everyone in the kingdom has value and purpose. And I think we often fall short as a body helping people along in that path and actually find a unique assignment or calling or vision and purpose as they go. So there's no one that exists that doesn't have that from God. And that's a part of his character and part of what we get to do. It's for everyone.
I'm with you. I think the element that I would add is that I thought of as you were talking was he delights in seeing us unpack those things. I think he just, like, as a parent, I can't wait for my wife to see the present I got her for Christmas or whatever. And I often, I'll admit, probably sometimes don't even wait till the appropriate time for to give her that gift because I'm just so excited. But I just think the Father's like that as we start to discover those gifts and passions and walk in them. He delights in our delight. So
yeah, and the gifts, passion story, like no one else has your story. Like the experiences that you've gone through as a person, they're very unique and can be used, and he does delight in that. So I would agree.
Awesome. So what one step would you recommend someone take then, knowing that that's the way God is for them? What would you say they ought to do?
This is going to be oversimplified, but ask the Lord, what is the one step I can take, and just do it. So often it is as simple as that. Maybe there's a person you need to have a conversation with. Maybe there's a GPS assessment you need to take for free in the Fully Alive app. Maybe it's your community that you're surrounded with of, hey, I'm interested in pursuing and developing a calling that God's put in me. Would you help journey with me in that? But if you ask the Lord, hey, show me how to take a step towards this, I'm confident he will.
I like that answer, and I am too. All right. Last thoughts. This is your chance to tell all 6 listeners to this podcast. Who knows? This is only the 2nd episode, but if you could give the friends here just one insight on pursuing Jesus, pursuing your calling, and living fully alive, what would it be?
Yeah, there's no other vision that's better. The American dream falls short. Anything else you would substitute in this place falls well short. Knowing and walking daily with your Creator is the way. And then inviting other people to join that is, there's really not a word to describe it. So I think about what Fully Alive is about, and I start imagining, what if we hit that number? What if it's 3 or 4 times that? What if 1 million people are living fully alive and teaching others how to do that through the person and work of Jesus and his kingdom? We would see lots of things change.
I agree. It's so interesting. You would think that the 2 million number was the most important number for us, but for me, it's the 70,000, because they're the ones that'll have the most joy, because they've learned to walk in these rhythms that you're talking about. They've discovered their calling. They've taken the steps in it, and now they're helping other people engage it. They're like the grandparents. I'm a new grandparent. I've got a 1-year-old coming up. We're getting ready to have our first grandkids 1-year-old birthday party, and the joy of being a grandparent and not just the parent or whatever. Oh man, it's a game changer. So thank you for that. Yes, there's major delight waiting. Kirby, thanks for being on the call today, man. Thanks for being my friend. Thanks for pursuing Jesus and challenging me to do the same. And we'll have to get you back on here someday. This is good.
Yeah, happy to, and eventually meet in person. But yeah, thank you, Brian and team, for all that you're doing. Keep up the good work.
You got it, man. Take care.